You're listening to Bye Bye Baby, a Dob Berman production.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Bye Bye Baby podcast. This is going to be our episode about demisexuality, that whole spectrum. I am your babysitter today. I'm Anna, and I'm joined by my two babies,
Mariana
and Madi.
And just before we get started, I want to quickly say that if the only Demi that you know is Demi Lovato, you're not old enough to listen to this podcast. So, you guys both have the Demi word somewhere in your identities.
Yeah. So I consider myself demisexual, but I also consider myself bisexual. So it's like awkward using those two labels together, but I mean that's how I best identify myself as a demisexual, bisexual.
Well, in the same vein, I consider myself both demiromantic and demisexual, but also pansexual / queer. So it's just a wide spectrum of things, and it's quite hard to explain for most people.
I am still confused. Somewhere in the demi-ace spectrum, but basically we've all got a lot going on. And just for any listeners that maybe aren't as familiar with this terminology as obviously we are, because it's the us. How do you guys define demisexuality or demi-romantic anything?
Well, I can't really speak on demiromanticism because that's something I am completely unfamiliar with, so I hope you guys can enlighten me on that. But for me, at least the way that I describe my demisexuality is that I don't really have any desire to be sexual with somebody until I've developed some sort of bond or connection with them. I'm definitely not someone that can have a one-night stand. People are icky to me until I develop some sort of feelings for them. It can be platonic, but it needs to be some sort of connection, some sort of bond. I don't feel sexual desires towards strangers whatsoever.
Yeah, I feel that. Mariana?
Well, in my case, I don't know, I just feel this detachment from people. It's sort of awkward to explain. So, for a while, I actually thought I was in the aro-ace spectrum as well. But I just came to the conclusion I just really need to trust someone to allow them to get close, either emotionally or even potentially physically. And that's where the demiromanticism comes into play for me. I
just want to quickly say for our listeners who, again, maybe don't know things, aro-ace, aromantic, asexual.
Yes, sorry.
Quick definitions for y'all.
I kind of tried some words out. I tried some terminology up for a while, see how it suited me. It's and yeah, I really like the demi terminology, and I really identify with demi. For me, it's like when I'm confronted with a physical person, and especially if there's any chance of a romantic / sexual thing happening with a person, I just clam up.
What I'm getting from this is that we kind of all have slightly different definitions.
Yes.
I personally define my demisexuality as the fact that I need to know someone, I need to develop some sort of relationship with them before I can even think about potentially being sexually attracted to them. Because people are gross.
Yes. People are gross.
People are gross.
Mashing parts is gross.
Oh, yes.
Why are you so gross today?
I don't know.
God.
Something's in the air.
Hashtag people are gross.
Hashtag people are gross.
Disgusting.
Disgusting. I need to check my my horoscope for the day and see where the moon is, because the moon. Oh, Mercury's in retrograde, guys.
Oh, fuck yeah.
My communication is all sorts of fudged up
And gross.
and gross. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, back on topic.
Yes.
I did look up a definition of demisexual, and I found that the most common definition is that it's a person who does not experience sexual attraction until they form a strong emotional connection with someone. And I want to particularly stress that there's a difference between people who see someone and are totally into them and are just waiting till a certain point in their relationship to have sex, as opposed to someone who won't consider that attraction as sexual until they have reached the emotional. You know, it's like the same thing how celibacy is not the same as asexuality.
Yes. Yes, that's a very good point.
I'm very pointy.
Same.
Again, it might vary a little bit from person to person, but
Definitely.
I think even from what we've talked about, and we come from radically different backgrounds,
Yeah.
but apparently our definitions sort of intersect
Yeah.
pretty well somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, definitely.
How did you guys come across the label?
So, I hadn't even heard of So, I hadn't even heard of demisexuality, or demiromanticism, until, like, 6 months ago.
Oh my god, you're a baby.
Yeah, I'm a baby in all...
So
Baby Demi, baby
Yeah,
Brian,
like, all
Baby
LGBT
Maddie.
ways, I am a baby.
baby Maddie, yeah.
But, like, I didn't even know it was a thing until this past summer. And, you know, I was just working at a pet shop and just talking to...
To the pets?
No, we
Was
didn't...
one of the dogs like,
Okay.
you might be Demi.
Let me verify. The pet shop I worked at, we were not a store that sold animals.
Okay. So a bag
Those-
of pet food was
Yes.
like, you might be Demi.
We were like a dog and cat supply store. Don't support your pet shops that get their animals from bad sources. Okay?
Adopt, don't shop.
It's a different topic altogether.
Yeah, but
but
still.
I was just chit-chatting with my coworker, and she said something about, I was, you know, as coworkers do, like, you divulge all of your dirty details, even though you barely know the person.
Yep.
So this was only, like, my second week working there, and we're just, like, talking about all of our sexual experiences, and, like, all of these, yeah, you know, as coworkers do. And so as I was explaining something to her, don't remember what I was talking about, she was like, oh, so you're demisexual. And I was like, what are that? What are demisexual? What that means? And so she explained it to me, and I was like, wait, aren't all people like that? Like, in my eyes, I thought that was just, like, how all people were. So I had no fucking clue. But as soon as she told me that...
How do you think one-night stands happened?
I don't know. I don't know. But yeah, so once she told me that, it just clicked. And I was like, yep, I am taking that label and I am slapping it on myself. Thank you. So yeah.
So I found out through YouTube, like I found out most things. It was through this YouTuber named Hash Hardell. They're amazing, and
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
yeah,
I got nothing.
and
They're trans.
Yeah. Well, I was watching a video by them, and they did a video explaining a bunch of sexualities. They actually have a book released called The ABCs of LGBT. Again, not sponsored.
Rhymes. I love rhymes.
Again, not sponsored, even though we keep mentioning YouTubers and other people in this podcast. I swear not. And so, in that video, they went through a variety of sexualities, and one of them was the A spectrum. So,
Woo.
asexual and aromantic and demisexual, demiromantic.
The grays, the
Yeah,
etc.
the grays,
Yeah.
the everything.
Flaws,
Yeah,
the WTFs.
the
Me.
scolios. But yes, a variety of sexualities and romantic identifications. And I don't know, it just stayed in my mind.
How long ago did you watch this video where you first heard
Oh
from?
wow, might have been a couple years at the very least, maybe more. I have terrible notion of time.
Same.
Like disgustingly horrible.
The last 5 years are a blur.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
What
kidding.
the fuck happened?
Like 2007 was 3 years ago, right? not 12.
Oh, that's triggering.
It's upsetting.
Yes,
Well,
I
actually,
do not
7 was
remember.
a weird time.
I do not remember my first 2 years of university, guys.
Nope.
Like, literally a blur. So,
I have a kind of similar story to, well, there's some intersection between both of you for me. For me, it was about 8 years ago that I first heard the term, because I am the oldest demi-bi, or baby demi, I guess. I was in high school. I was like 15 or 16. I was at the Gay Straight Alliance, because that's where all my friends went, because it turns out that we're pretty much all not straight.
Wow.
But we just thought it
Imagine
was
that.
like we were going to go be supportive of the one gay kid. How's it going, Paul?
Hope you're doing well, Paul.
Yeah,
Hey,
he was
Paul.
always nice. And one of my friends, not Paul, said something that she thought she might have been demi or asexual, and we were all like, "Hey, what that means?" And she was like, "Oh, it means you either don't experience attraction or you experience it in these conditions." And I was like, "That's weird. That's how everyone is. Whatever. You're just being weird." And then everyone was like, "Oh yeah, that's totally the opposite." And I was like, but I had already done my introduction and been like, "I don't know. I guess I'm straight." So I was like, I won't like bring this back to me. But it sort of stewed in my head for a long time after that. Like a long time. Like a year. And then I was like, I'm so asexual. And then that's sort of bounced around, and then I got into a serious relationship, and I was like, oh, I don't mind a sex. So that must mean I'm demi. And I'm still not sure.
are you juggling with any other sexualities?
I'm just
or-
going to hang out in my nebulous I don't even know cloud for a while.
And that's A-okay, pal.
It's a-spec okay.
That's a spec, okay.
Good one.
Thank you. I have almost 10 years of making ace jokes, so
Wow.
I hope I should be good at it by now. All right. Check on that. So, for me, it's just the cloud, but for you guys, there's a little bit of intersection between an actual, like, when I say actual, a different sexual orientation and demisexuality.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that intersection has any bearing on your self life? Butts?
Well, personally, it doesn't. But it just intersects in a weird way when I try to explain it to other people, because I'm like, it's sort of just a big mess of identity, and personally, it makes so much sense to me. It 100% makes sense to how I feel, to how I perceive people, and everything.
And that is absolutely the thing that matters most. is that
Exactly.
you are experiencing something that makes you feel good.
But it's hard to kind of like put it out there into the whole wide world. So when I'm trying to like, hello, my name is Mariana, and I'm bi, but also sort of pan, but also demi, and all these exist in a cloud.
A cloud.
So maybe I'm also in a cloud, but I tend to go for I am queer, which sort of just encompasses everything. It's like my whole cloud. It's like my whole cloud.
Yeah.
It just spells out queer.
Yeah, you just got a big, like, Q-shaped cloud.
Yes.
The way that it, like, intersects for me is, I mean, typically I just label myself as bisexual because that's quicker and easier, and it's more understandable for most people. But if you want to get technical, I think that I would most likely fall in the what is the word for how there is like the split attraction model. So if we're talking about
Good old Sam.
if we're talking about the split attraction model, the two boxes that I fall into would be biromantic, demisexual. I think would be the most accurate description of me. But I don't feel the need to introduce myself that way.
No. It just confuses people.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably the closest I've ever gotten to, like, having a solid orientation. Which, again, chucked it out into the cloud again, but...
Yeah. It's floating around somewhere.
Yeah. Hashtag, woo.
Hashtag, woo. What about you? Is that...
I mean, cloud. I don't know why I always point behind me for the cloud.
It's
It's back there.
looming behind you.
I don't know. I guess the intersection between trying to figure out what the hell sexual attraction even is sort of more what I'm thinking about these days. But I do see the idea of maybe not wanting to throw out so many labels all at once, because I don't know if you ladies know this, but society sucks.
Yeah.
Ooh, big time.
And they're easily confused.
It's so true.
But I think it's important to say, like,
There's no shame in finding your own labels.
yeah, I think for the most part, in all of my experiences, people are just ignorant, and I don't mean that with like any sort of negative connotation. They just don't know. Like, I've had to explain, LGBT terms to my parents before, not because they have any issue with it. It's just, they just honestly have no clue. They're clueless about the whole thing. Mm-hmm. They're like, what does this mean? What is this label?
I think that is true for a lot of people, but it's not always the case.
Yeah.
Because I had friend is it's a strong word. I had a person that I knew, and we were kind of in the same social group, and it was a pretty small social area, so everyone hung out all the time. And I do remember one time this person, let's go with, what was her actual name? Let's go with B. And she had a whole day that she was just ranting and raving about how people who are demisexual or any kind of like non-binary should never come out, because who cares, and it doesn't matter, and it's just going to bother other people. And I definitely strongly disagree with that, by the way. Like, that's forked up. But that's a perception that I've seen out there in society quite a bit.
Oh.
And it's not great.
No. I've never experienced that, but that's definitely not cool.
Yeah, I think society just likes to, in a way, society likes to put everyone in boxes, but then when people try to choose their own boxes, they just tell us we're wrong and you should fit into these more socially acceptable boxes. And honestly, I've had this debate with a number of people about how demisexuality and even like the entire age spectrum shouldn't be sexualities. Because like we talked about, you can be demi but still be attracted to both males and females, and that's
I think it's a completely different spectrum.
Yeah. I understand their point that it's a different spectrum, but also don't just, if someone says, well, I do rather say that my sexuality is demi, just don't be a dick about it.
Oh, yeah.
Just don't be a dick about it. I mean...
Hashtag don't be a dick.
Hashtag don't be a dick. Because you never know. For some people, their labels are really important, and it's a big part of their identity. You shouldn't be just your labels, but there's definitely a big part of your life. So just don't go out of your way to shit on other people's identity and say, I don't think that this should be a sexuality. You know?
Yeah.
It's healthy to have debates about it, and because that's how things are figured out. But if you're being malicious to someone about it and trying to just erase them, then it's not cool.
Yeah.
That's my 2 cents on it.
I mean, when it comes to like the LGBT community, I definitely have some different views than a good majority of people in the LGBT community. However, I respect people's opinions and their views and things like that. So while I wouldn't introduce myself, like if I'm sitting at a table with a group of LGBT people and we were going around the table, like identifying ourselves and our sexualities or whatever, I wouldn't give some long laundry list of like covering every spectrum there is, as far as pronouns and the ace spectrum and sexual attraction, romantic attraction. I wouldn't go down the laundry list. Personally, I think that's excessive for me. But if somebody wants to identify that way, if that is who they are at the core and that label empowers them, it's none of my fucking business to get offended or bothered by that or have any sort of say in how they define themselves. It doesn't matter to me. It shouldn't matter. Someone else's identity shouldn't matter to you because it has literally no effect on you.
That is true.
Yeah.
Amen.
Did we just solve homophobia?
I wish it was that
Finally.
simple. I
we
wish
just
it was that
solved
simple.
Literally, like, climate change. with that.
How?
I just saved the world, guys. Thank me later.
So does anyone have any advice or little tidbits that they might want to throw out to a baby Demi out there?
Yes. For starters, even if you don't identify as Demi right now, but like you're considering it, maybe after this podcast, the word just stays in your mind. Just take your time with it. It's not a race. You don't have to run towards the end. If you're like craving an identity and like you're really searching for your identity, like your little place in the world or something like that, do some research, check out some YouTubers, check out, I don't know, blog posts, forums. There's this forum on romanticism, I believe. And they also cover gray romantic, demi-romantic, etc., etc. So, and I'm sure there's something similar for the asexual spectrum.
There's a lot of great resources out there.
So just look out for it. Talk to people. If there's no one immediately around you, just try and find someone online in one of these forums or in a comment section of a video, something like that. Try and talk it out, because I feel like a lot of times talking is the way to figure stuff out, rather than if you just keep it in your head, it's all jumbled up. But when you let it out, it sort of comes together nicely.
Hey, you can talk to yourself too. I do that a lot.
You can do that as well, yes.
No shame. No shame. I think my advice would be... Oh shit, I just had it and it floated away. Where did it go?
Cloud. Ah!
Someone catch the cloud. Okay, so my bit of advice would probably have to do with the pressures of society and whatnot. I think we live in a very sexual society these days. Especially our generation, our age group. It's pretty normal to, be fairly sexually active, have multiple partners. No shame in that, as long as you're being safe. That doesn't matter. What you do with your body is what you do with your body, and that's fine. However, if you fall on the other side of that and you just aren't having sex because you don't feel the need to, or you don't have the desire to, unless you have that bond with someone, that's fine. Like, you don't have to be having sex to be a normal human. It's okay.
There's a lot of ways to have fun even without another person.
Have you guys ever read a book? Like, that's amazing.
Oh, I thought Mariana was insinuating sex toys.
Yeah, I was. But a book is also fun. You can read erotica.
Yeah, I do.
So yeah, there you go. Read erotica.
Yeah,
That's the bottom line.
Yeah, if you don't have the desire to be sexually active, cool beans. You don't have to be. And if you only feel that way once you've reached a certain point within a relationship, whether that's platonic or romantic, that's fine. That's perfectly normal, and roll with it. Don't ever feel the need to pressure yourself into anything that you don't want to do.
Do what makes you happy. Don't do what doesn't make you happy.
Yep.
I just have like one last note as well, since we're talking about sex toys.
That's a whole other episode. That's a different episode.
I know. It's just wanted to say that for the people who are questioning whether they're either ace or demi, even if you have a libido and a sexual desire,
That's true.
doesn't mean you're not demi/ace. You can have plenty of fun by yourself, but not want to have fun with other people. And that's an important distinction.
There was a thing that I used to see on the internet a lot. Action does not equal attraction. Like, you can have sex with someone that you might not necessarily be sexually attracted to that person. It happens all the time. You can kiss someone who maybe you're not sexually into, but you're just like, whatever.
Want to have some fun.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Kisses can be platonic as well.
Yep.
So you don't need to like kiss in a romantic or sexual way.
Yep. And for my little bit of advice, I just want to assure everybody, your label is yours. It's for you. It's to make you feel better. And if it's not doing that, then it is not serving its purpose. Don't put yourself in a box that you don't want to live in. And also, I love you.
That just made me imagine someone living in a box. So, if you are currently living in a box, send us an email.
Let us know how your box is.
Yeah, we want to help.
And if you have any questions about anything we've talked about today, if you're unsure, or, I don't know, you just want to talk with some fellow demis, just send us an email.
We're super nice and weird. You'll
Yeah,
like us.
we're so nice and weird. Just, honestly, send us a message. We'll respond. Maybe become, I don't know, pen pals or something like that.
I've always wanted a pen pal.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're here for you wherever you are.
Send us an email if you want at byebyebabypodcast@gmail.com. And you can also find us at our social medias on Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, and YouTube. Our handle on all of those is byebyebabypodcast. Thank you so much for listening, and
Bye bye, babies.
Bye.